Many of you will have seen that I did a talk recently at the Northcote Library as part of History Month in October last year. So this video is a kind of summarised version of this event. I found this topic when I was having a look through the online Trove website a few years ago, as you do on a Sunday afternoon. As usual, I went down some rabbit hole and ended up coming across the Alphington to East Preston Railway Construction Act. This video is a result of this research and that done by others, which you can read in my bibliography linked in the description below as usual. If you're unfamiliar with the area that we're talking about, Alphington and Preston are suburbs to the northeast of Melbourne CBD. They both lie on the Darebin Creek, which will become important later. As we've talked about before, after the Second World War, there was a huge demand for housing. This was driven by returning military personnel, a population boom, and immigration from overseas. The Housing Commission of Victoria went about detailed planning for meeting this need right across the state. One of these strategies was to purchase large tracts of land on the periphery of Melbourne for the government to build high-quality model communities with public housing, parks, recreation facilities, shops, and, of course, transport connections. At the time, this typically involved promises of new tramways or railways. So in line with this plan, in June 1946, the Commission acquired 2,000 acres of land in Preston and Heidelberg to build 7,000 new dwellings. And part of the announcement was to build a branch line from the existing railway to Hurstbridge to service the new estate. Although it seems that at least some detailed planning went ahead, it didn't take very long for the combination of funding shortfalls and an increasing dominance of cars to kill off the project. As costs mounted and policy preferences changed, there was little appetite from either politicians or transport officials to build a new railway in a built-up area of Melbourne. And so, in November 1959, just 13 years later, the previous act to build the railway was quietly repealed with hardly a mention in the press. Had it been built, the 7-kilometre route would have roughly followed the western bank of the Darebin Creek. At the time, most of the area along the proposed route was bushland with sparse development, because it was far from the existing railways further east and west. It would have begun as a double-track railway at Alphington Station, before becoming single-track soon afterwards and turning north to continue all the way up to the eastern end of Broadway in Reservoir. As this was a time when cars were becoming more popular, part of the plan was designing the line without any level crossings. This was to be done by elevating or tunnelling track where it was needed. As part of this plan, there would have been 6 stations. The first would have been here, just north of Darebin Road in what is today John Cain Memorial Park and the Alphington Industrial Area. The second would have been on the site of Thornbury High School. The school was built in 1962, soon after the cancellation of the railway, as the land was no longer needed for this purpose, and the school remains here today. The third was planned to be north of Bell Street between Chifley Drive and Murray Road. This would have mainly serviced the industrial area that exists there today. Although if one of the various proposals for a tram between Heidelberg and Essendon that frequently landed on the desk of railway commissioners throughout the 1920s, 30s and 40s had gone ahead, this station may well have been an interchange point for trams as well. Moving north, the 4th station would today probably be the busiest. Its location would have put it right next to where Northland Shopping Centre is today, on Wood Street. This is probably a topic for another video, but for now let's just say that it was a sign of the times that when this shopping centre opened in 1966 by then Premier Henry Bolte, he used the following words: "Shoppers today are sophisticated persons who want somewhere that they can bring their cars and park them easily." Further from here would have been the 5th station at Plenty Road. As with Northland, the land was subsequently used for a shopping centre after the railway was cancelled, today called Summerhill. The terminus station would have been next to Reservoir East Primary School near the eastern end of Broadway. This was on the edge of one of the large public housing estates proposed by the Housing Commission, ultimately the main reason given for building the railway, of course. Today there's little sign that this would ever have been there. Although its main purpose was passenger traffic, industrial development was also part of the plan for this railway. Good sidings would have been provided to service several new areas for factories and warehouses, in Alphington near Darebin Road and in Preston near Wood Street. Even though the trains never came, these industrial areas were built anyway. It's interesting to me that this development was zoned and built where it is today because of the planned railway, but as we said, it never came. What has also always interested me about this project is that you can still see most of its alignment. If you look at a planning map of the area, you'll notice some strange property boundaries and streets that don't quite fit into the surrounding areas. This is because land previously reserved for the railway was sold off, ironically mainly for private housing. I'm also not sure why the railway wasn't proposed to continue further from its terminus in Broadway to connect to what was then the Thomastown suburban line, or at the very least reserve land for it. The end of the line in East Reservoir is in a bit of a random spot. Even the Victorian Railways didn't think that this was a particularly logical endpoint, although their solution was to shorten the line to terminate at Southern Road, where Northland is today. I would like to particularly acknowledge the research done by Ian Cook and Ross Wilson in articles published in Newsrail, which helped a lot during the research for this video. I've provided links to these in the sources list in the video description below. And finally, a big thank you to everyone who came along to my talk. It was great to see you all. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it and would like to see more, please subscribe to my channel so that you can stay up to date on future videos. Also, feel free to check out my website at philipmallis.com and the supporters portal at members.philipmallis.com. Thanks again, as always, and I'll see you next time.